Welcome to Wednesday, Rotarians. Here we are. Can you believe it? The last day of August, but I'm here to welcome you to the 5,358th meeting of the Rotary Club of San Jose, far from our last meeting. I'd like to thank the executive chefs for greeting us out in the lobby. It was a small but hearty group, and that means, of course, that the fall barbecue is going to be coming up soon. We'll be hearing about that a little bit later. But first, let's get to know all of you by having our red badgers with the traveling mics please stand up and introduce themselves. I'm going to start over here to my left with Abe.
Abe Wolcott, San Jose State University, and my sponsor is Rod Diridon Sr. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abe. And in the back, we've got...
Hi, my name is Desiree Escobar. I work with the probation department. My sponsor was also Rod Diridon Sr.
I sense a pattern here. Okay. If any visiting Rotarians or Rotarians with guests would please stand to introduce your guests, we can get to you.
I will go ahead and introduce my guest, Desiree again.
Okay.
So my guest is my husband, Jorge Escobar. He is the vice president of our Probation Peace Officers Union 1587. I wanted him to come and meet you all.
Great. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, hi, President Sal. Dick Conniff. I'd like to introduce again my guest, Robert Massey, the new General Director of Symphony San Jose.
Wonderful to have you here again, Robert.
President Sal, I'd like to introduce my friend Tom Nixon. He's been with us 2 or 3 times in the past month, and I'm happy to say that yesterday he turned in his membership application for our club.
Well, we're thrilled to hear that. Welcome, Tom.
I'm Susan Ellenberg, Vice President of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and my guest today is Michael Norris, who is my Director of Communications.
Great to have you here, Michael.
Where's
Ray?
Hi, Ray Castañeda, Racing Castañeda, and my guest today is Mimi Hernandez. She is the Executive Director of Prosperity Labs, and she brought her application too.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. Thank you, Ray. Mr. Ellenberg.
Steve Ellenberg, Law Practice Litigation, and it's the Ellenberg family bring a staff member to work to Rotary Day today. And this is my colleague and associate, Arthur Rothrock at Hopkins and Carly.
Great to have you here, Arthur. Mr. Borkenhagen.
Mr. Pizarro, Steve Borkenhagen here. I'm filling in for my friend Carl Salas, who runs the Youth Exchange Program, and has, for about 20 years. And our guests today are Michelle Bruneau, who's the host or hostess for our incoming exchange student from Santander, Spain. His name is Javier de la Hoz. And could you all please welcome Javier?
Welcome, Javier. Welcome, Michelle.
Hello, I'm Rachel Barclay, the General Manager at the Capital Club, and today I've brought our new Event Sales Director, Julie Winterborn.
Welcome, Julie. So, do we have anyone else? Nope. Is that it? Okay. So now we get to do again, always a favorite part, new member introduction. We have a couple of them today, so if I can ask Dede Rogers and her sponsor, Ashley Hopkins Pass, to please come up to the stage, and if Karen and Anna can get ready in the wings.
I would like to introduce my friend Dede Rogers. Excuse me. I was really impressed when I first met Dede because she's dedicated to helping others. She volunteered tutoring in our local high school. She participated in community outreach for at-risk youth, and she founded Stay Home Connected, which connects seniors to the world using technology. Also, I would like to follow my sponsor, Joe Calici's example by giving 2 fun facts about Dede. First, Dede is an identical twin. Her twin's name is Cece. And only about 1 in 150 Americans are identical twins, so it's fairly rare. The other fun fact about Dede is she's a scuba diver. She sent photos of herself diving with fishes from the Great Barrier Reef. So has an exciting life. So allow me to introduce the newest Rotary member, Dede Rogers.
Thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate that beautiful introduction. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Pebble Beach. Beautiful, beautiful place to grow up in. Went to the local schools, Carmel Mission, Santa Catalina, and then went on to college at Cal State Stanislaus. After college, I went straight into high tech at National Semi, which is where I met my husband of next week. It will be 39 years of a lovely marriage. Thank you. And then I spent the next 20-something years in sales and marketing management for various semiconductor companies around the country. Steve and I have 2 children and 1 20-month-old granddaughter who we're very proud of. The kids actually took after me, and went into sales and marketing in high-tech companies. Steve and I like to travel, and as Ashley said, we like to scuba dive, hike, read. We are fine wine collectors as well. And as Ashley said, I am an identical twin, and it's interesting how identicals can kind of weird people out. So one time, a few years ago, I was doing a grant proposal, YouTube, and I watched it and thought, holy smokes, now I understand why people are so weirded out about this. I look like Cece, I talk like Cece, my hand gestures are just like Cece. So then I understood why everybody else around us would find us to be a little bit strange. The one odd little fact on that, everybody wants to know about the woo-woo stuff with twins. Oh, do please believe it, because it is true. We have very odd connections. I started my business, Stay Home Connected. We're a very small computer consulting company. The reason I started Stay Home Connected was because there is a whole generation of people that are being left out of the forward movement of technology, and that's senior citizens. You know, there's a lot of money poured into schools, kindergartens, and on up, and that's because that's where the forward-looking revenue is. The seniors, they might buy a device here and there, but they don't have a lifetime of contributing revenue to our technology companies. So that's the reason I started it. You know, seniors don't have a frame of reference, nor do they have the vocabulary of technology, so it makes it scary for them. And it makes it scary for some people who are younger than them too. But we don't speak in tech talk for our seniors. We talk in just plain English. But it's very important for seniors to be connected with technology, to feel comfortable using their iPhones, their Android phones, their PCs, their iMacs, and that sort of thing. Because everything is pushing to the web. And if anyone has tried to call AT&T or Comcast, you'll understand what I mean by it's very important for everyone to know how to use their devices to communicate. We're kind of a soup to nuts company. We identify, order, set up, and move forward with them. We also do all their Wi-Fi. So to wrap things up, I'm delighted that Ashley was so kind to bring me into Rotary. The enormous amount of good this club does is just incredible. So thank you for allowing me to join, and I look forward to working with the senior committee and the unhoused committee.
you in the middle? You gotta get in.
I'm in the middle.
We're gonna figure this out eventually. No. Okay, we got a little flag difficulty, but don't worry, we'll get it sorted out by next week. So let's bring up our next set of new member and sponsor, Karen Philbrick, our president-elect, and Anna Rudell.
Well, thank you so much. Friends and fellow Rotarians, it gives me terrific joy to introduce Anna Rudell, one of my dear friends who I'm very confident will quickly become a friend of yours. Now, I know we only have 3 minutes in total to talk, but she has lived a rich and full life, and I look forward to you connecting with her individually. She is the owner and president of Lo Care He Acupuncture in Willow Glen, where she's a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, specializing in fertility. There she leads a group of 7 acupuncturists, each with a passion for working in their area of interest, and the clinic has been described by many as an oasis in the busy heart of San Jose. Anna is an open, honest, joyful, and authentic person who has a way of connecting with people very deeply. She has helped hundreds, and I mean hundreds of families, bring new life into this world. In addition to her professional endeavors, she's actually lived on 3 continents, traveled to over 40 countries, and she has hiked in the Himalayas, reaching 17,500 feet before the COVID lockdown. She swims regularly for pleasure and for fitness, and she said something to me that I want to read specifically to you. We met each other through our spouses and our 10-year-old children who play together, and when she learned that I was a Rotarian, she wanted to connect because she said, Rotary many, many years ago, that's how she put it, not me, helped fund her passage to Indonesia to teach English. She has always held this gift close to her heart, and she vowed that she would pay it back one day, and here she is. After her first meeting, she wrote to me, "It's the first ever type of a group in which I have had many needs met. I have felt included, mentally stimulated, inspired, and engaged." Please join me in welcoming Anna Rudell, the newest member of our club.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and as Karen said, I've never felt so welcomed in a club. I moved to San Jose in 2003 as a new graduate and started Lo Care He Acupuncture out of my 2nd bedroom. And since that time, we grew to be the largest group acupuncture clinic in California. In January of this year, I chose to step back from patient care to become both the clinic and the clinical director. And that flexibility in schedule allowed me to consider Rotary to give back to the community that supported us for the past 20 years, and a small matter of the personal debt to Rotary, who played a significant part on setting me on this path many moons ago. I am very much looking forward to years of service and connection with you all, and once again, thank you so much for your welcome.
And Rod Diridon is my sponsor too, so we've heard from a lot of them today.
A lot of Rod babies, as we'd call them out here. So, all right, moving on, we have next a new feature. As you guys know, one of my interests and passions is history. History San Jose is one of our beneficiaries this year, so we are asking Bill Schroe to share some history with us. So, Bill, come on up.
Move it one? Okay. Thank you, Sal. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So when Sal asked me to come up with this new idea of looking back, the first thing that I thought of was the electric light tower. You can see behind me over here. I'm sure most of you have seen pictures of the electric light tower, And I thought that this was a great way to begin the series, looking at something that was built right here in San Jose. The light tower was the idea of J.J. Owens, who was then the editor of the San Jose Mercury News. But not only did he have the idea for the light tower, he also built a series of electric street lights around the city, and it was supposed to be the first street lights in California. Now, this is where history and rumors come up. San Francisco was the first city that was electrified. Yet San Jose claims to be the first electric streetlights, so I'm not quite sure, and it's fascinating when we start to do these studies between the rumors about history and the actual facts, because sometimes the rumors are more fun, but the facts are a little drier. But it's dangerous when you burst someone's bubble from the rumors. The tower stood 237 feet tall. Give you an idea, the Eiffel Tower is over 1,000 feet tall, so it's almost 5 Eiffel Towers. The tower was built using wrought iron, and that would be its downfall. The tower cost $5,500 to build in 1881. In 2022 dollars, that's $160,000. The money was raised by subscription, and $3,500 of it was raised by the local public in San Jose to build the tower. The tower was one of the world's tallest freestanding iron structures in the world when it was built. I tried to find if it was the tallest structure in California at the time. I haven't been able to find an answer about that one yet or not. The lights were so bright that legend has it that nearby farmers' chickens wouldn't lay eggs because they thought it was daytime. Another legend was that birds constantly ran into it. And apparently the locals, when the birds fell to the ground, they would pick them up and sell them to local restaurants so they could use the meat. Again, these are, banners were hung from it. 4th of July flags were hung from it. It was used as a great advertising tool for the city. Photos were taken of the city from the tower, which is great for historians because it gave this incredible bird's eye view of what the city looked like in the 1880s and 1890s. Another great rumor is that Gustave Eiffel based the Eiffel Tower on our tower. There is a movie about that as well. I don't know if those rumors are true or not. I've also read rumors that he came to San Jose. Again, we can't, those are all circumstantial. The towers survived the 1906 earthquake, and it would survive another 10 years and finally collapsed on itself on December 3rd, 1915, right when the city was about to completely restore it. The scaffolding had been started to be built, and the tower just said nope, had its life and fell down. The story of the electric tower of San Jose has been luckily captured in letters, blueprints, newspaper articles, photographs, and lots of postcards, as you can see right here. And that got me thinking about looking back. It's very important that we need to look back. We need to keep these memories alive. We need to continue to collect things like photographs, things like postcards, things like letters. In this digital age and emails, things just disappear, and we're not having that. And as an historian, that terrifies me and horrifies me because I'm not going to have that written record in those photos, maybe not available in the future. So here's the tower when it fell down, and there's the scaffolding that the city started to build around it to restore it. So let's kind of keep this as a memory that we get these photographs are around and can tell us stories for the future, and we're just going to make sure we keep doing that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And there's a replica of the tower, of course, at History Park where Bill works, and it's interesting to note that the replica was put up in 1977, so it has lasted a dozen years longer than the original. So better construction, I suppose. Okay, next I'd like to bring up past President Steve Borkenhagen to talk to us about a large club conference and, more importantly, our special Monday Rotary meeting on September 19th. And he's going to say, now you've said it all, I don't need to say anything.
Thank you, Sal. To channel Brian Adams, it's so good to hold on to that podium. Just a reminder, the Large Club Conference is happening September 19th and 20th. September 19th is a Monday. We will be having our regular Rotary lunch on Monday that week. So that's Monday, September 19th, not Wednesday, September 21st. We've got a fabulous speaker. It's going to be, is it on the slide? Thank you. Janine Pelosi, she's from Zoom and should be a very interesting speech. I don't think she's related to Nancy, but that's okay. So the Monday lunch is at the Signia, the former Fairmont. I'm guessing many of you have not been there yet. It'll be a great chance for all of us to see this new hotel. There's a link on the website to sign up, and you can also sign up in the lobby. And there's only a limited number of seats available. We really like to have lots of people attend both this and the barbecue that I'm going to mention in a moment. We're welcoming the leaders of the large Rotary clubs in the United States. This is a once-in-a-100-year proposition for San Jose. So all of you, please embrace this, support Sal, support the club, and do that. And then on September 20th, on Tuesday, we'll have our fall barbecue. So the barbecue will be on a Tuesday, not on the usual Wednesday. So both events have limited numbers of Rotarians that are allowed to attend. So just please register for both of them. Have lots of fun, and as I said, support Sal and support the Large Club Conference. And Cindy Faulkner and Carl Salas have been working diligently on this, along with Maggie Padavani and some others now for a year or two. So it would be really polite for all of us to support them. Thanks.
So, a question from the audience. Great question. I don't know the answer to that. I'll clarify that for next week. What I can tell you, though, is I talked to the executive chefs when they were in line, and they said, 100 people, 500 people, we don't care. Bring them on. So you can invite for the barbecue. Everybody can come, bring guests, normal. They're like, yeah, we can do whatever we want. Okay, so up next. Oh, and important to note about the Signia meeting, that's going to start at noon to accommodate the speakers. So not 12:15, but noon. You're going to want to take a little extra time to make sure you get parked and get there, but that starts at noon. So let's bring up next Matt Bell, our membership chair, to talk about membership.
Thank you, President Sal. Just want to say it was nice to see Steve back up here. We miss you, buddy, but you know we are also enjoying the increased attendance since your departure. So thank you. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, I'm here to talk about membership. We are off to a phenomenal start, and I think it's also no reflection on Steve's tenure. But this year we're on a rampage here in the first couple of months in terms of new members. As you can see here, first of all, Sal has given us a lofty goal of 40 new members this year, which would be very instrumental in when we have some attrition, but new membership to either keep our numbers or ideally grow our numbers over this year. So as you can see, 8 new members thus far, and I just really want to recognize the sponsors of these 8 new members. So if you're here, please stand up when I say your name, and if you're on Zoom, you know, maybe raise your hand on Zoom. But let me just recognize Octavia Derby, Steve Ellenberg, Rod Dearden, of course, already has 2 new members. And by the way, shockingly, I am not one of his sponsors, or I'm not sponsored by him. Celeste Drake also just came in with 2 new members. Heather Lerner as well. So we've got a few double dippers here. Thank you all. Karen Fox and President-elect Karen Philbrick all have sponsored new members this far. Thank you. If the math is not adding up to you there, a few were co-sponsors of members. So thank you for your efforts there. And the other really exciting news is we currently have 6 applications in the process right now. We vet those applications, call all the references, and then pass them on to the board for approval. So I think we're well on our way to having an additional about 14 new members here very early in the Rotary year. So very exciting. Want to also just encourage everyone to keep it up. We're having great success thus far, but unless you're really looking for new members, thinking about Rotary, and just simply asking people, so often we hear, well, like what took you so long, or why did you join? You know, the answer is, no one asked me. So please feel free to do that. Keep sending them our way, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And as we previously heard, we're introduced to our inbound youth exchange student from Spain, Javier, and his host mom, Michelle. We will be hearing from Javier at a later time, but right now I want to introduce you to someone you actually have met who is also involved in the youth exchange program, and that is Julia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Julia, and this is my Rotary journey. So as most of you may know, I was the San Jose Rotary Youth Ambassador from 2019 to 2020. And you guys sent me to Spain, more specifically, Logroño, La Rioja. And while I was there, I went to a school called El Inventor Cosme Garcia. And during the time that I lived there, I was with two different host families. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So I wasn't able to stay there for as long as I had originally planned, but the 7 months that I did get to spend there were really incredible. I am continuing my journey of study abroad. I'm currently enrolled at George Washington University, and I'm studying international affairs there. And I also applied for and was selected to be part of the Global Bachelor's Program. Now, this program is a program that entails me studying abroad for 2 separate semesters, and then also doing 1 international summer internship. I'm going to be doing a couple different courses throughout that time, and then this will all culminate in 1 capstone class, and I'll have to write a thesis for that. And so for the 2 semesters that I told you guys about earlier, I had the option to either go study in China or to study in Ireland, and so I chose Ireland. And so in 6 days' time, I will be studying in Belfast, Northern Ireland. There I will be studying conflict and peace studies. And I have to complete a 2nd semester abroad for my program, and I'm thinking that I will possibly do Argentina for that. I speak Spanish, and I've been continuing my Spanish education throughout my journey in Spain with you guys, and hopefully here in the future. Thank you, Rotary, very much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure interning for the past couple of weeks with you guys. And in just this time next week, I will be starting this new adventure. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Julia Casanova Moore, thank you. Yeah, we wish you well in your Rotary travels, next to Ireland, and we want to thank you for helping out in the office recently. So a couple of things to mention before we get to our speaker. Of course, we still have the opportunity to sign up for the Climate Summit going on September 10th at the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors Chambers. That event has just picked up a presenting sponsor, Green Waste Recovery. So we're really excited about that. And I also want to let you know that next week we have Ring the Bell. So if you've got good news to share, please come ready to ring that bell. And we're also going to have a beer reception with Hoppa's Brewery in Willow Glen here. We're going to have actually a lot of fun that I'll get to at the end as well. Last thing, be sure to order lunch early next week because of the Labor Day holiday this weekend. So the lunch link will be on the website by Thursday, so the sooner you can order, the better we can do with that. And now let me bring up Charlie McCollum to introduce our speaker. Charlie.
Thank you, President Sal. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to keep the introduction of our speaker today very brief because many of you already know her from her work as a community leader, as a trustee of the San Jose Unified School District, and now as a member of the County Board of Supervisors. Actually was reelected and nobody bothered to run against her, so it was great. So would you please welcome our fellow Rotarian Supervisor, Susan Ellenberg.
I can close the laptop. That's okay. Hey, everybody. It is just a delight to see all of you and to be back in person with Rotarians. As most of you know, I joined the Board of Supervisors 4 years ago, and from the very beginning, aligned the priority areas of my office around 3 issues: children and families, behavioral and mental health, and public safety and justice. Charlie invited me to talk today about behavioral health through the lens of my office and that of the county. And as my husband, the former program chair, reminded me many times, I promised to leave lots of time for questions. On January 11th, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a referral that I introduced along with Supervisor Otto Lee to declare mental health and substance use disorder a public health crisis in Santa Clara County, and to charge county administration with leading on strategic solutions to this crisis. Between that date and today, the county medical examiner reports that 188 people have died due to drug overdoses, and 106 people have died by suicide in our county. That is nearly a loss of nearly 300 in 7 months, 300 of our children, parents, siblings, friends, and neighbors. And these are preventable deaths. They also represent only a small portion of the number of people who suffer the impacts of mental illness and addiction in our community. This is a public health crisis because people are dying. The sad reality is that our current system of care is not equipped to meet the current demands. On any given day, our acute inpatient facilities are full, our subacute long-term care beds are full, and there are patients in those facilities who could step down to residential facilities or board and care, but those facilities aren't available either. Too often, when there's nowhere to receive care, people will cycle through jail and emergency services without getting consistent ongoing treatment. The reality is not new, and it's not unique to either California or the United States, but it is clearly unacceptable, and we need to move with urgency to meet these needs. We have to start with naming the problem and committing to finding solutions. This is obviously not a quick fix and will take long-term sustained effort to address. We also have to identify the problems within the big problem, including the lack of a behavioral health workforce proportionate to the size of our need. As I continue to visit programs and facilities across the county, I see the hard work of our frontline clinicians, community-based providers, and county behavioral health services department staff and leadership. It seems to me like everyone is working very, very hard with great compassion in a system that is fundamentally broken. They are working with the resources currently allocated to them to provide the best care that they can. We need to move beyond patching together what we have to focusing on what we need to fill the gaps and make this system function. And that means 3 things: workforce, facilities, and access. So I'm going to talk first about the workforce. Our board continues to prioritize funding for behavioral health, but in many cases, we're not translating those funds into services because we don't have the people or the places to provide that care. Unfortunately, our providers are reporting record numbers of vacancies at all levels across the system of care. In our own county behavioral health department, about 1 in 8 positions are vacant today. We need to both stabilize our existing workforce that has been stretched very, very thin during the pandemic, and to grow the pipeline of future behavioral health workers. This too will not be an overnight solution, but we are taking a number of specific steps. First, the county is adjusting the rates paid for services to our contract providers so that they can assure that their salaries are competitive, including keeping people working in the Bay Area despite the high cost of living here. The county has established a manager of behavioral health workforce initiatives, and they're leading a work group of partners to identify and implement solutions in partnership with many of our secondary institutions. We've leveraged state and local funds to provide tuition reimbursement and local repayment awards of $10,000 for each qualified student in training to become a licensed clinician. Nearly 150 applications have been received to date, so that is very encouraging. We've added signing bonuses for new hires or promotions into roles that have proven hardest to recruit, including therapists and psychiatrists, both in the community, in our health system, and in the jail. During last year's budget season, I initiated a grant to Joint Venture Silicon Valley to conduct a study of the academic programs for behavioral health workers and to identify solutions, further solutions, to help us grow that pipeline of workers. When the COVID pandemic began, a driving force for shelter in place, or for the shelter in place orders and the closures of schools and businesses, was the risk of overwhelming our healthcare system and running out of hospital beds that would need to be available for people who needed them. Let's talk about facilities. In the case of our behavioral health system, we have essentially tolerated a long-standing bed shortage, and we've lost lives because of that shortage. We cannot wait a minute longer. We need to act as though lives depend on us, because they do. As you all know, our region is engaged in a lot of efforts to meaningfully reduce the number of unhoused county residents, and I've been fortunate to see the great work being done with Measure A and partnerships to build affordable homes. And I want to share how that work runs parallel to addressing mental illness and the substance use disorder public health crises. When people are experiencing homelessness, very often they are also struggling with mental health or substance use disorders. So we need not only the direct services to address those latter issues, we need the creation and preservation of permanent supportive housing to comprehensively and sustainably meet those challenges, rather than looking for quick fixes or various forms of short-term forced confinement. Over the past several years, the county has worked to expand the types and levels of support we provide to people who are experiencing mental health crises, serious mental illness, or substance use disorders, both directly within our own health and hospital system and in partnership with community-based providers. My colleagues and I have advocated for expanding treatment capacity across the continuum of care, from acute crisis stabilization beds to long-term care to step-down residential and supportive housing. Even rent stabilization is part of this collage, so that if someone is in crisis and unable to work, their rent can be covered so that they don't lose their home while they're receiving crisis care. For those of you who followed the shaping of the county budget for this new fiscal year, which began July 1st, I was pleased to see what we were able to include, such as $1.8 million for an additional 20 substance use detox beds, which are expected to serve an additional 700 to 800 people a year, and $1 million for pre-construction planning for long-term psychiatric beds, and another $3.5 million for housing supports for people with mental illness. And at yesterday's board meeting, county staff outlined an intent to add 500 treatment beds in local facilities across several levels of care by 2025. This is an ambitious goal and will require focus, funding, and partnership as we work with our cities, neighborhood groups, and partners to get people off the street and into care. So let me now talk about access, and then I will pause for questions. We need to make it easier for people to access care when they need it and minimize disruptions in care for our residents who need the most intensive supports. In the last several months, some new strategies have been launched in Santa Clara County to improve access to care in our local system. First, in this past July, the National 988 Mental Health Response Line went live across the country, and it connects on the back end to our county's mental health call center, suicide prevention program, and crisis response teams. This tool can expand access and help residents call for assistance without relying on 911 or having to remember a 10-digit number. Efforts are currently underway to allow for the routing of mental health response calls that do go to 911 to be rerouted to 988 and their response teams when it is safe to de-escalate. There are approximately 3,000 calls to 911 every month, purely for mental health crisis needs in our county. 988 is an easy to remember number, It's just one tool, and like the 911 system, it only works if you have field responders that arrive when needed. Over the last few years, the county has built out tiers of response teams, from PERT teams with a mental health clinician paired with a law enforcement officer to mobile crisis response teams of providers that might meet up with police on scene. And starting in October, we're rolling out a new Trust Mobile Response program for non-law enforcement response by community-based providers that will include a clinician and an EMT. We have much more work to do to scale up some of these programs, but we are building one of the most robust crisis response systems in the state, if not in the nation. So finally, I'm going to touch on assisted outpatient treatment, AOT, which was launched in the county last February, and some similar efforts under Governor Newsom's Care Court proposal, which I believe is going to sign into law next week. Both approaches aim to provide civil court mandates to individuals to participate in treatment. Santa Clara County AOT is actively accepting referrals from families, providers, and law enforcement agencies for people with severe mental illness who are disconnected from care and have had multiple interactions with emergency services and law enforcement. More than 300 referrals have been received to date, and our staff is working to assess every individual and connect them to care. In most cases, clients do choose to accept voluntary treatment without progressing all the way to a court order. And it's critical to remember that both AOT and the Care Court solutions mandate outpatient care. Whether voluntary or compulsory, these care mechanisms do not result in a person's hospitalization. But for either of these approaches to actually be sustainably successful, we need the supportive housing, treatment slots, and care providers to make that system work. So here's my call to action for all of you. Yesterday, the board directed our county executive to accelerate action on key program and facility expansions, and we charged him to report back to the board in 90 days on progress. A public meeting on that progress will occur on December 6th, with monthly reports in the interim. We're also preparing to review and prioritize the range of capital improvement projects on September 27th, and I intend to prioritize behavioral health treatment facilities that get people into care, off the streets, and out of jail into therapeutic settings when those have been deemed appropriate by the courts. We need to act with urgency in responding. We need to mobilize a whole of county response that cuts across departments and moves quickly. But we need to go further. Just like with COVID, we need a response across the board. Every school, business, faith community, care organization, and family made sacrifices and rose to the call to support our neighbors in need during the height of the pandemic. I want to call on your help to meet the pressing needs that we see across our community in this mental health and substance use disorder crisis. Please join me in holding county and city leaders accountable for funding programs, approving housing, and implementing plans. Recognize that many of us struggle with our own mental illness and with substance use for ourselves and within our families. In my personal several years ago, I talked about my own struggle with depression. We can all work together to destigmatize these health concerns that are even more prevalent since the pandemic. For those of you who are employers, you can take particular care to support the mental well-being of your employees and provide access to supportive care and treatment. Be knowledgeable about how to connect people to care. Call 988 instead of 911 when someone is in crisis, and get the word out about this new resource. Go even farther and get trained by the county in mental health first aid or other techniques that can help when someone you know is in crisis. Support the building of residential care programs and permanent supportive housing in your neighborhoods. These facilities are critical to keeping people off the streets and connected to care. For my part, I'll continue advocating for permanent and sustainable funding for the county's behavioral health needs, and I will continue to seek participation of a wide network of stakeholders, cities, courts, law enforcement, healthcare providers, families, patients, systems users, so that we can realize a complete system of care for all of us. I think that this is achievable. I think that it's incredibly difficult, But if truly we can get our county government to focus on solving this issue, it is possible. We have done hard things. Santa Clara County has done a number of really hard things and made life better for people. I think this is what needs to be front and center right now. So that is it from me on our system, but I would love to answer questions.
While we're waiting for questions, we've got Steve.
Yeah, Susan, I'm over here. Hey, Malcolm Gladwell in his book, What the Dog Saw, one of his articles that's in there talks about an analysis that was done in one municipality about the costs of taking care of your mentally ill or people who are addicted to various substances proactively as opposed to reactively, and the cost benefit was huge. Most of us understand cost benefit, and these programs are expensive, but quite often they pay for themselves. Can you talk about that at all?
Sure, and that's exactly right. That was the financial argument that was used in support of the Measure A housing bond in 2016, that it costs less to house people than it does to keep them circulating through emergency care and interacting with law enforcement and our jails. It is, so when people are in jail, just as one example, Medi-Cal doesn't cover any of their expenses. That is all general fund, your tax dollars. If the people who are there who actually need mental health treatment could be in treatment centers, there's Medi-Cal reimbursement for that. There is a revenue stream. So if you even push compassion aside for a moment, there are strong economic reasons to provide this care and to build the facilities that will help to solve these issues. Also, moving people down in levels of care, there's actually more coverage, more insurance coverage and partnership available in the lower tiers than there are in the locked facilities.
Fernando?
Yes, thank you, Susan. Before I recall that there were Agnew State Hospital, we had a whole statewide system of these mental health hospitals. And I don't recall ever seeing people sleeping under bridges or in tents along streams and on sidewalks. And I know that they closed these for some reason, and I wondered, is there any energy among all of the counties to prevail on the state to reopen these mental health facilities? Because to do by yourself, or just one county here and one county somewhere else, seems ineffective in the sense that this is a statewide as well as nationwide problem. Any idea that that's possible? Because housing these people clearly is an answer for a lot of these social ills.
Housing is the answer, not necessarily institutional housing, but permanent supportive housing that provides those wraparound services. And part of the reason, Fernando, I would venture to say, is that you see an increase in people on the streets is not solely, or even at this point largely, because of the closure of those institutions. It's because since in that same period of time, with the tech boom explosion and the astronomical increase in the cost of living and price of housing here, is the largest factor responsible for the number of people who are unhoused in our community. And we can and have to address the mental health issues and the substance use issues, but if we don't have housing, all we're going to have is perhaps slightly healthier people who are unhoused. And we can all imagine how much harder it is to maintain care and treatment and health when you're living unsheltered. So I'm going to come back again and again to housing as the root for this. There's not, the state closed its institutions and said, counties, you handle this, but provided no additional funding. And that started an era of outpatient and community-based care, which works for some people, but the exponential rise in the number of people has far outpaced what our current system can provide. That's why it's the facilities and the workforce and the access that we need.
Janica, before we get to your question, I want to go to one of our Zoom questions. Jeff Pelly asks, he says, the public school teachers need support for their children. They're expected to handle so many students with severe emotional and psychological needs. How can the county better support the many mental health challenges that schools are required to manage? This goes beyond what a teacher is trained to do.
No kidding, yes. So one of the early initiatives that I worked on, in fact, perhaps presciently, but coincidentally before COVID, was to expand our schooling services and access to mental health services to every single school in the county. County had been working with about 15 school districts. There are 31 school districts. So we are in the process right now of not only ramping up services at every school, but helping to fund wellness centers, which are kind of a whole topic in themselves. There are a lot of potential purposes for wellness centers, but we are very, very much aware that teachers are asked to do so much in the way of social work care for our students who come to school with any number of deficits generally related to socioeconomic status. So that's in fact exactly why I moved from the school board to the county, because I saw that schools were very limited and that counties need to play a bigger role, and I'm committed to that.
Thank you. Janica.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. You're still not on.
If it's working, there we go. Hi, Susan. So also along your answer around housing and the tech boom and the cost, I'd also add that the severe lack of production over the past couple of decades has also exacerbated that. But my question is really, I appreciated the call to employers to step up and the call to action to employers. And there are many around this valley that are, especially some of the tech companies, in providing mental health services. I want to know what the county, what the supervisors are doing, what the executive office is doing to support the county employees, the thousands of county employees. So I've actually talked to a few, and they're having a severe access issue as well. So you as an employer.
Yes, so this was a big discussion at the board meeting yesterday, because the executive of our health and hospital system did bring forward a program for increased services and supports for the mental well-being and mental health of our 22,000 employees. We are the third largest employer in Santa Clara County. We ran into an interesting and very frustrating challenge in that conversation, because the plan had been developed without the input from our labor groups who would be directly impacted. So the plan is going back. The supervisors had no interest in approving something when we didn't know that it would actually work for the people for whom it was being designed. And that's in fact often an issue. In fact, I'll do a quick plug for my blog post, which just came up today on a totally different topic, but it's about involving justice system involved youth in improving their education system. It's very, I think, irresponsible to design programs for others if you don't have those end users in mind. So the board should hear hopefully a revised and very likely improved plan in the next couple of months. Thanks.
Scott. Thank you for your leadership on this subject. Supervisor Ellenberg, I think everybody here agrees those who want housing should get housing. But as you know, we have a population that is service resistant, whether they're suffering from substance abuse, whether they are having a psychotic break, mental illness, or they're just an urban outdoorsman. And so what are we doing for, the naked guy on the street in his own excrement that's victimizing a whole community around him? Certainly that individual is a victim. It's my understanding of the 300 referrals for AOT thus far have all been voluntary. So how do we get to the compulsory? I mean, some of these folks are never going to volunteer to go in for help.
So if their state of mind doesn't rise to a crisis level, they're not going to qualify for AOT. There are very narrow requirements for that. So let me answer that in a couple of ways. First of all, the statistics range between 4 and 10% of people who are unhoused are very service resistant. If we put them aside for a moment and handle the housing for the other 90 to 96%, we're doing great. For the folks that are service resistant, but not in a crisis level, where we need more, one of the many places that we need more workforce is people in the field, building relationships with those folks who are very difficult to reach. And the ideal is over time, they will build a relationship, they will trust, and they will accept services. We're not going to lock people up for being, I don't want to minimize this, I don't want to say unpleasant, but people have individual civil rights, and we're not going to violate their rights or their due process, because that is quite literally against the law. We're going to work with every person we can to bring them into treatment, and those that do qualify for involuntary treatment, which is a little bit of a misnomer too, because the black robe effect of the court, whether it's care court or AOT, cannot compel somebody at the end of the day into treatment unless they also qualify for a conservatorship. So if you want to address this in the way that I hear you want to go, the direction I would recommend is making the conservatorship eligibility broader and maybe not as deep. And there are lots of people that will support you. There are lots of people that will oppose you. That's not a decision that the county can make.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left and a few questions, so if we can have quick questions, we can get through them all. Mark McKenna.
So my question's shifting to the substance abuse. Governor Newsom recently vetoed the bill that would allow for safe injection sites. I've heard stories that San Francisco County is thinking about using NGOs to establish those privately. Are there thoughts about what we would do in Santa Clara County in terms of addressing the need for safe injection sites or opportunities for that?
So like San Francisco, we definitely have a methamphetamine and a fentanyl crisis right now. We offer medical assisted treatment for folks that do want to try to break that. That's part of the outreach that we are doing. We haven't set up safe sites, and I don't know that that's something that will come to the Board of Supervisors, but I can tell you that it's something that I would entertain, because at a minimum, we need to be saving lives and reducing harm and increasing the opportunities to provide care that could and would save the person's life.
Octavia.
Okay, Supervisor Susie, sorry, I just want to tell you, thank you for everything that you've been doing, especially Octavia Kitchen. And also I want to ask you, are you thinking of running for the mayor or even governor?
I love my job, Octavia. I think county government is the best, most impactful and effective level of government. We are directly in our communities. We have the opportunity to engage and hear directly what people are struggling with, and we have funding and systems and services to be able to do it. We are absolutely not perfect, and there is so much poverty and pain in this community, but I think I would kind of defy folks to find a county that's doing it better with the same population and the same size.
Great. Last question, Morris.
Susan, thank you so much for your advocacy for the unhoused and for those with mental illnesses. You mentioned the fact that we have a lot of homelessness because of the high cost of housing. I would say we have a lot of homelessness because of the unwillingness of the residents of Santa Clara County to accept housing for the homeless within their immediate area, i.e. NIMBYs. And a lot of the NIMBYism is caused because of the perception that all homeless people are mentally ill or addicted. And so back to AOT and back to conservatism, we need to have conservationism we need to have more action in that area. What do you suggest? What can we do?
So what I would love to see is all of you getting involved with your neighborhood associations, bringing in county folks and people who are living in our successful permanent supportive housing units. We started out and struggled. The first couple of projects had a lot of security issues, a lot of on-site health-related issues, law enforcement. Each time we've built, we have learned and gotten better about service provision and property maintenance and security and all of those pieces. So what I think would be the most effective is inviting us, and then we in turn can invite residents from the current projects to say, this is who lives here. I am your neighbor. I was a civil engineer who had XYZ happen, and I've been on the streets had been on the streets for 7 years, and now I live in the Lee Avenue apartments for seniors. That's what people need to see. We'll do tours. If you have a neighborhood association group that's panicked, we can show you existing developments that have been built. You can talk to residents. Part of it is incumbent on the county to be able to assure neighbors that you will be safe in your neighborhood. Larry will tell you every day of the week that your property values will not be diminished by including affordable housing in your neighborhood. But we need to, I understand that people want to feel safe. So that's my suggestion and request, and happy to hear from any of you on that.
Thank you, Supervisor. Or maybe not. Okay. So thank you, Supervisor. And as you know, what we've been doing, a donation is being made in your name to the San Jose Jazz Aid Fund. I know you were at the Jazz Festival. We're trying to keep musicians here. Do we have any San Jose State fans in the house today? Okay. Okay, as you know, number one, Spartans open up their football season tomorrow night against Portland State at Sefco Stadium. So anyone who wants to go, you should go. I'm going to be there. And next week, we are going to have, our speaker is Steve Perez, the interim president of San Jose State, who is also one of our members. He will be in conversation with our other member, Janica Clem. I'm looking forward to that. Remember, we're going to have a beer reception at 11:30. And as a special treat, we're also going to have performance by the San Jose State Marching Band. So let's keep the good times rolling and hope to see you all next week.